Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Minions of the Zoo Saturday panel show. I'm your host and keeper of the Harry Channel, and with me tonight is DrFunctional,
Quack,
Prospero,
Hello.
and SkepTock.
Bonsoir, mes amis.
How are you doing, Skep?
I'm doing much better, thanks to you.
Oh, well,
giggity.
You had a really good suggestion, and I'll be damned. I've got three kind of amazed nurses who are sitting there watching this thing work.
Yeah, well, just...
Long story short, I have a middle ear problem that is starting to assert itself. It does so as you get older, and I lost my balance. It's like being the dizziest you've ever been on a carnival ride and throwing up constantly. It's a terrible thing. So I was taking Dramamine to get by, and Harry said, "Why don't you see if you could get some cortisone back there?" And I thought, man, that's a great idea. And so I got some Nasacort spray, and we sprayed it way back into the bowels of my parietal sinus, where it would be topically very close, right on top of the affected area, and it really seems to have had an effect. Thank you, Harry.
Well, I mean, my fancy doctor suggested that to me. And
that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Turns out. Yeah. Everybody is just kind of going, really? That's amazing.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. It's amazing what cortisone does, or that steroids will do. Is there anything steroids can't fix?
Yeah, well, if you have steroids, duct tape, and WD-40, you're good. You can go to space. You can go to Mars with that stuff.
Rule the universe.
Flex tape would be good.
Yeah. You want some flex seal. You can terraform Mars with that shit.
Yeah.
With that stuff. What did I've already blown it.
I know. Well, you have to put some in the swear jar. We're actually trying to pander to Susan tonight and try to keep our salty language down to a minimum. We made it. How far did we make it in? 4 minutes. Okay. Well, Susan, just be happy we're trying.
My
hi, Prospero.
In the United States.
We're gonna be hearing a lot less from Prospero tonight.
Hello.
Tell us about your day, week, month, whatever you want to share.
I made a new recipe in the crock pot this week, so
nice.
That was fun.
Tell us.
It's called Mississippi pot roast.
And
it's basically
it's possum.
Yeah, this is gonna make Harry sad.
It's not.
You take like a 3 or 4 pound chuck roast, and dump in a packet of ranch dressing seasoning, au jus mix, toss in 3, 4, 5, 10, however many you'd like, pepperoncinis, and about a 1/4 cup of butter. And you cook it on low in the crock pot for 8 hours.
Oh my God.
And
I feel the arteries hardening.
That stuff falls apart. It's
if you get a good piece of meat, yeah.
The one I had was well marbled. It does create
that's what you want.
Plenty of juice.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the pepperoncini brings acid and a bit of spice to the party. So there's a hint of tartness that goes with it. So you need to serve it over mashed potatoes or alongside or with noodles or whatever. I tried it with like those no yolk dumpling noodles. And
you could make shepherd's soup with it.
Yeah, pretty much. I tossed a bag of small carrots in with it because I wasn't sure how assertive those pepperoncinis would be. And hey, at least there was a vegetable.
Yeah, I have an idea listening to what you're describing. Now, I think carrots in a crock pot work really well, but if I'm not going to throw red wine in there, I usually won't. I think that recipe sounds really good. I wonder if you had some kind of medium-sized waxy potatoes, like red potatoes or Yukon Golds, and just threw them in about 2 hours before you were going to serve it. If they would just basically cook to perfection along with the pot roast, and then you'd literally have like a 1-pot meal.
Yes, that is what one of the recipes I looked at, she said she tossed both carrots and potatoes in. She put russets in, and I cringed. I cringed.
No, you can get away with that if you put them in late. That's one thing that we do a lot of is pot roast and crock pot cooking. Russets you can get away with if you put them in late enough, but it's really an art form and it's hard to get them right.
Yeah, the timing's
almost got to be perfect.
For russets, all I could think was, it would be so much easier with
use a better potato than russets.
Like the red skin potatoes.
Yeah, the reds is what I always use.
Yeah, they're my go-to.
There's my go-to also.
I mean, I will use gold potatoes for making like the really rich potato casserole that I make at Thanksgiving that's got cream cheese and half and half and butter, only because it's already
hardening the arteries.
Yeah, well, it's Thanksgiving or Christmas. You know, these are not everyday mashed potatoes.
No, it's our holiday honoring atherosclerosis. Go ahead.
Yeah,
well, speaking of cooking, Functional, how you doing, man?
Why? Do I cook?
Yes, you do.
I'm all right. You know,
don't leave me out here to just hang. Did you make any? Do you have anything you'd like to share before we dive into our very busy schedule?
Yeah. So, as anyone who's even remotely familiar with the matter, to steal a phrase from a friend, Star Trek since the ending of Enterprise has been utter crap. We've gotten STDs, we've gotten Old Man Sad Picard, and it's been just a complete and utter travesty. It's unwatchable schlock. I was unconvinced initially from the reviews that Picard season 3 was going to be any different, but it was, and it was surprisingly actually pretty decent for what it is, you know, modern style telling of the Trek universe, the Trek mythos. It's only been up to episode 3. I've been enjoying it so far, and that kind of gives me hope that Frakes's influence behind the scenes and behind the camera, because he has been the director for season 3, a few episodes here and there before, but for season 3 especially, and more behind the camera with the story and the development of the show, he's been a little bit more hands-on. I hope that they keep letting him do his thing. And you probably don't like it at all, Skep, I know, but no. I'm a huge DS9 fan, and that's all I'll say on that.
Oh,
I've heard that that third season. Sorry, let's just pretend the first two didn't happen. That third season of Picard is actually pretty good. But here's the problem. You know, it's like when Lucy is holding the football for Charlie Brown, and Lucy's kind of like acting like she's not going to yank the football in front.
Yeah,
I do not want to have my heart broken again by these people.
Cretins.
I haven't got time for the pain.
But if you're already invested, right, like you are, Functional,
I got the time.
I hope it's great. I hope it's great. I mean, I don't want it to.
So do I. But you know, I'm gonna hold my reserve like final judgment until it's completed, and we'll see. But like the beginning has been a good beginning compared to what we've gotten in the last decade, like of just pure trash, not even Star Trek. It's
yeah. Well, let's see. Since we have a busy schedule, let's see what is at the top of the schedule. Oh, it is a thing that Skep is going to talk about. I'm going to hold you to 10 minutes on this, if you would, please, sir.
Yes, absolutely. This is
so go.
Well, I've noticed a trend in American politics where in political positions, be it the president or a senator from Pennsylvania or a Congress creature from New York, that it is less important who the person is who occupies it than who effectively owns that person's vote, who the set of interests that can make that person vote a certain way on a different interest. And they, the position holder is normally in the position of selling their votes. But when you have the outside interests get together and say, we're going to take this person, this basically, like AOC, a Manchurian candidate, she doesn't know anything about economics. She doesn't know anything about anything. And her naivety is on display, and it's destructive to our political process. So this is happening with John Fetterman and his lovely wife, Giselle, who has an uncanny resemblance to Lucretia Borgia. And as she puppets him around in the last months of his life, I believe. I don't think he's hospitalized for depression. I suspect he is on life support, and they go up to him in front of the beeping machines and whisper at him and wonder why Daddy doesn't respond. And as soon as he does pass, Giselle is going to lobby like hell and say that she's was discriminated against if she doesn't get appointed to the seat in his place. She's going to cite precedent. Everything from Lurleen Wallace to any number of governors' wives, especially, who succeed old dead governors. So, at any rate, make a long story short, this is a terrible thing, because what will happen is the candidates will be these model type, Obama type things where it's all form and no substance. There's nothing there. There's nothing good that's going to happen other than a bunch of special interests are going to get their way, which is usually not optimal for, the people generally, or, the public good in any sensibly looked at fashion. Yeah. So this is nonsense. I would call it other things, except I'm trying not to swear. And it is so disappointing to see it's almost as though we've gamed ourselves. We've gamed our own political system, and that's a terrible thing. It's because we didn't respect it. There's a lot more to that, but I'll leave it at that, Harry, because we do have a lot to discuss tonight. What do you guys think about this? Is this just a hideous spectacle, or am I overreacting?
She's no Margaret Chase Smith.
She's not even a Jackie Spear.
I have a question.
She's not even.
So is Pennsylvania a appointment state if something happens to the governor?
Yes.
Or senator or whatever?
Yes. The governor. The governor appoints the. Yes.
Okay. It's appointed. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as an outsider looking in, I mean, it's kind of not really too much on my radar. I've heard what people have said here and there. It does seem like it's
that's federal law, isn't it, Prosper?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that's what you said. That's a good call.
It's a carry down from when senators were appointed by the
but it's in the USC. It's
okay.
Yeah.
It's in the US code.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like it's a bit of a spectacle, a sideshow gone awry. I don't think that this is playing out how they wanted it to, and it seems to get even worse and worse, because with this story here, it's like I understand it, but I don't, because I understand.
Functional. I'm really interested in your view of this. As I consider you to be a considerate, intelligent Canadian, and there's not that many of them. But anyway,
sorry you think that way.
What is your opinion about this? What do you think of this woman, Giselle, just taking off? It pops him in a hospital and splits for a vacation with the kids. What? And they're taking selfies, screaming, respect my privacy, almost like on a privacy tour.
It's I was just about to say, it's like just like
couple.
The South Park episode where it was the Meghan Markle, Harry,
and our new book.
They're out in front of their houses with megaphones saying, "Respect our privacy, respect our privacy." and yet everybody's like, just shut up, we don't care.
Exactly.
I understand there's a part of not having seen the photos or anything up until now, which is I understand the notion of wanting to get away from the media circus. You have kids, it's a tough time, but not when it's your supposed husband, your partner, your family member, anybody. Like, you would be there, you would have to suffer the slings and arrows of the press attention, because that's kind of what you signed up for into getting into political or public life. And I'm sorry that you would have to deal with that, but that's the appropriate thing to do. You stand by your man, you stand by your whoever it is, even if it's a friend that you actually deep down care deeply about.
That's what I thought.
You stand by their side, coma or not. You don't go to another duck country, goose country. Sorry.
Well done.
And I mean, do these people look like they're traumatized by what's going on in their life? I mean, sure, it's just a photo, but I mean, the old saying, a photo tells 1,000 words is it might not hold true 100% of the time, but here, sure, the little kid's kind of like, yeah, but the older kid and Giselle herself, they look fine. They don't look distraught or whatever. And it's like, what? You're that self-absorbed that you have to be in your protective little happy bubble all times, no matter what, even when daddy's possibly, his ticket. It's disgusting.
I could see if there's a February vacation in the public schools that the kids are in, or that kind of break, like a President's Day week break, that if your sister, brother, aunt, niece, were taking their family, you might send your kids with them. If things were really ratty, my parents left me behind in Massachusetts when my grandmother was dying, because she was going to die. That was kind of a known thing. And I had been in Richmond with them 6-8 weeks before, and it was not good, so they chose my peace of mind, and they went. And there was someone to take care of me. They prevailed upon a friend who was happy to do it. And I could see doing that while you stay by your spouse's bedside.
Yeah. How about that?
But, because if you really want to appear the tragic heroine of all of this, this is not the way to do it. This is not the way to do it. But then again, isn't it amazing that she's empowered? I can hear it now on Twitter, okay?
Oh.
I can just hear it now. It's the degree of self-absorption that is cherished in our times now. Actually encourage. Well, if all hope was lost, what was the point in being there?
I should be happy.
Yes, and you will be happy one day. But that's, my God.
No,
at least pro forma.
Life is suffering, and sometimes you have to suffer to get through it, to be a better person. But
even if she hates his guts, pro forma, okay?
But she's woman, and she's intersectional, and so she is beyond criticism. You cannot criticize this woman.
I can't.
She's got Niagara Falls on her dream board, and by gum, she's going to go to Niagara Falls. That's just the way it is. But I need to move us forward.
Okay, moving ahead. I'm sorry.
All the places, though.
Yeah, I know. Well, okay. You gave me a good segue a moment ago. Now, maybe I'm the jerk here, okay? But Oregon Japanese families concerned about plans to build wind farm near World War II internment camp. So it's a national monument because a terrible thing happened for which the survivors were paid restitution.
Yes.
Okay. This is a very different thing than the money please thing that's going on elsewhere. Setting that aside, these people ended up losing property and damage and had to be made whole. And you could actually make a case for it because it's like within their lifetime, they were able to get compensated by the government.
These people, yes, right, exactly.
Right. And so this is a different kind of situation. Now, what happened was terrible. It's a complicated thing. I'm not trying to Tim Pool it, but that's not what we're discussing here right now, like why it was a bad thing. But the point is, what I don't understand is, how is it that having 400 wind turbines within line of sight of a national monument for something like this is a bad thing? Do you think that like the ghosts of their ancestors are going to be offended by green power going in near this thing?
I'll explain it to you very simply.
Please, because I legitimately, this seems weird.
Real quickly, 2 sentences. If you have to ask that question, you would never understand the answer.
I can suspect what it is. I think
usually it's a shakedown when people do stuff like
this. Well, it's creative NIMBY.
Exactly.
Or it's either very creative NIMBY or a shakedown.
Yeah, what can we get out of this to stop complaining?
That's all this is all about the money. Just follow the money. What's the not quo vadis? What's the Latin for who benefits?
Oh, cui bono.
Cui bono.
Cui bono.
Yeah,
getting so old. Look, there's some attorneys who had an idea.
Yeah,
and they started talking with people, and look what happened. A case developed. Amazing. That never happens. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Wind turbines are super noisy. Right. Wind turbines can be really noisy. So if you put them right along the perimeter of the national monument and you can't hear the tour guides as they walk people through, that would be a different situation. But this is sort of like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not, this isn't an act. This isn't a bit. I legitimately just don't get it because my brain can't wrap itself around here. It seems like made up.
That's all this is.
It's just made up outrage.
Right, and that's all.
And they're hoping to get bought off.
That's right. That's exactly what this is. It's just a public extortion.
Yeah. Gibbs, please.
It's really not that much to it.
What's Latin for follow the money?
Yeah,
yeah, cui bono.
All right, so let's see. We can get some time back here. Oh, we've moved so quickly that we can actually get to one of the little break items. I think this will amuse you, and I know this will amuse Prospero in particular.
By the way.
Okay.
There you
so
go.
This is a 1989 long-form PSA with Sting about saving the rainforest. I just want you to enjoy this little flashback here.
Yeah.
These are some Indian friends of mine in the Amazon. Their lives today are in great danger.
They are.
Their beautiful home in the rainforest is being destroyed by logging, mining, and ranching at a rate of 60 football fields a minute. This is the rainforest in 1900.
Beautiful, isn't it?
This is the rainforest today.
Might have changed color.
This is the rainforest in 30 years if present trends continue.
Hold on a second now. That is the... Nuh-uh.
Did he kill a lion to get that haircut?
I do believe so.
So they turned it into the Iraq?
Don't let performers and artists and movie stars be the spokesperson for anything involving science.
This
you just
is
make
science.
yourself look stupid. Yeah.
Follow the science.
He's got like easels and
charts with
numbers
on
and
them. Well, yeah.
I just thought you'd enjoy Sting from 2020 telling us, or from 1889 telling us how the rainforest was going to be completely gone by 2020.
And let me just say this about Sting: he is an amazing musician. I have a boundless respect for him. He has Prince-like talent. He's amazing.
Well, he just got called in. Every year they do a thing, right? What's the cause celeb? Right? So they bring in Sting and go, hey, Sting, you want to talk about the rainforest? I love the rainforest. And so he just did his little thing. He's not a rocket surgeon. He doesn't know.
Yes, but...
He was a school teacher.
At what point does the barrenness of the entire continent of South America... Or wait, whichever rainforest that is. Is that Brazil cut out on its own?
That is South America.
It's all of South America.
Yeah.
Well, this is all of South America. The first,
Yes, that's
the first one in 1909 or whatever is kind of squashed up. The second one shows the Patagonian desert down in the Argentinian area, down starting to creep up. And then the next one over, the next one shows the
didn't happen.
so you see more encroachment there. So it's for some reason going to the northeast first. Okay, so that's going against prevailing winds, but okay, I guess it could happen that way.
You've already put more thought into it than they did, Skep.
Yeah, but the thing that I am confused by is southern Brazil and Argentina are not rainforest per se.
No.
Are rainforest areas, but Argentina has a lot of
exactly right.
pampas land, and southern Brazil has a lot of farmland.
Yeah. Tierra del Fuego is known for its rainforest.
Uh-huh.
The Patagonian desert is known for the rainforest.
Yeah,
is that
it's
right?
like the Atacama is, you know.
Functionals is not an American. He knows geography. What were you going to say?
Oh, I'm just looking at some satellite imagery right now, and I can tell you that, I mean, things look like that 1900s map. Actually, they look a bit greener overall.
Well, it is summer down there.
Well, don't let your hate facts for the environment get in the way of things. I just thought it was a great example of what happens when you basically just bring in a celebrity to talk about your cause, and
to lie about it.
This is just the thing.
It's so he has a quality standard or better than Joy Behar, but we should probably move on.
Probably.
And again, it's not like I'm unsympathetic to environmental issues. Just don't fucking piss on me and call it rain.
Yeah.
I'm not unsympathetic at all. I don't think getting rid of the rainforest would be a good idea for anybody.
I think doing stuff like
it
that
also
damages
didn't
the
happen.
cause. Doesn't help.
It also didn't happen.
Yeah.
Probably because of what Sting did. If Sting hadn't done this, it probably would have ended up that way. So anyway, congratulations. So this, and I want to be very careful about the way I frame this. Scott Adams faces consequence culture as U.S. newspapers drop Dilbert. Not cancel culture.
Yeah.
Consequence culture.
Totally
see what they did there.
Them.
Yeah. So I actually don't need to get into a broad discussion of the Scott Adams thing because it's already been covered. But I thought an example of the fair and excellent reporting from the San Jose Mercury News would be worth a look. The East Bay cartoonist Dilbert comic strip, long one of the most popular in the country and appearing in more than 2,000 newspapers at its peak, all but vanished by Monday after he called black people a hate group in an incendiary diatribe on race relations in America last week. That is not what happened. Okay. Adams' implosion began last Wednesday when he cited a Rasmussen survey that dealt with the phrase, "It's okay to be white," proclaiming that 26% of black respondents said it's not okay, and 21% said they weren't sure. That's 47% of those people not willing to say it's okay to be that color. Adams said the poll demonstrated that those people were a hate group and there is no fixing current racial tensions in America, which is why he insisted those people should live in largely segregated neighborhoods. This seems like almost an attempt at journalistic integrity, but they miss it by at least half. This, because they could just put a link, right? I mean, how hard would it be to put a link to what he actually said? Because it may be a newspaper on the internet, but you can link to video now, and then people could decide for themselves. But I guess we can't do that because then people would form their own opinions or be exposed to more hate speech. You can't amplify the hate speech, right? So no link. Sorry, I'm confused.
Well, I mean, if you did that.
Okay, hold on. Go functional, then Skep.
You couldn't take his selectively edit what he said to mean whatever the hell you wanted to. So why would they want to prove themselves wrong?
Yeah, well, the whole coining of the new phrase consequence culture, I think, is just precious.
It is.
Yeah,
It's adorable.
it is adorable because it's not cancel culture, it's consequence culture. That's totally different. Go ahead, Skep.
One of the things that Adams is very good at is he uses something that we were trained at Pfizer to do with doctors. Doctors hate to hear medical information from anybody who's not a doctor. That's just a truism. Just accept that. If you're going to sell drugs to doctors, you have to be able to have resources at your beck and call. You have a whole bag of these things of nothing but studies that support your position, and you learn how to present these papers to the doctor. That's a lot of your job, is to help the doctors understand the biochemistry in these frickin' papers. And so when you have the opportunity to present that information to the doctor, you say, this doctor at Johns Hopkins says that blah, 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 and the study shows that blah, 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 blah. You never say, we've got a great drug, you should try it, because, I want you to. That doesn't sell. That doesn't sell anything. You get thrown out of the office if you do that. But if you bring them good information, they like that. And so Scott Adams does this. He does this back with them. That's why I think this article is so circumspect, or relatively circumspect, for the Mercury News. I used to get this paper years ago because it was kind of the only game in town where we were. I also got the Monterey Herald. But anyway, my point in saying this is that Adams is very good at saying, okay, this is not me saying this. This is this poll saying this. I'm just adding these numbers together, and I'm quoting the exact category word for word from the survey. And then he presents that, so it's not this isn't my opinion. This is just what this poll says. And so the rational thing for me to do is this other thing, even though he walks all the way around the racism problem. They're still nailing with him because white man not saying things we like. And that's basically why he got canceled. If you can get canceled, you will get canceled. Yeah, these guys are headhunting.
I think he was a little ham-fisted, honestly. I know exactly what he was trying to do. I watched it. I saw what he was trying to do, and he kind of intentionally rounded the corner at the front of the abattoir, and just went right for it. Yeah. He could have done this in like a way that like Jonathan Haidt would have done it, and would still be around, because Jonathan Haidt could have this conversation. I'm sorry?
He would present it very academically, don't you think?
Well, he would present it academically, but he would present it in a way that did not leave himself wide open to consequence culture.
I see what you're saying.
Throw up a little in my mouth every time you say that.
I just think it's.
Do you honestly?
I don't think he did a very good job. Go, Prospero.
Do you think this caught him by surprise?
I think he did it on purpose, but I think he might have overplayed his hand slightly.
I'm not sure of that.
Too early to tell, I know.
You think he got sick of deadlines and he just wanted to ditch the whole thing? And this would be Scott Adams. This is his MO, is to do, it was practical. It accomplished all these things. Or sometimes I think he's rationalizing. So anyway.
You
know what I'm saying.
It could be either. But in the interview with Hotep Jesus, he did say it's worth watching.
Yeah, I know.
He did say that he had planned to stop doing Dilbert at some point, obviously, because he said, I'm 65. But this was not his original plan for Dilbert. Wait for it. Was to have Dilbert come out as trans.
What a good idea. I support him completely.
That was his original idea. And because that would basically detonate Dilbert, he could just walk away from it. I mean, the man doesn't need our money, if you know what I mean.
It's very freeing to not have to worry about things.
Yes.
Yeah.
and I'm
Word up.
I think sometimes he claims a calculus to his actions that is rationalization. I'm not sure with this one because he'd also pulled that thing about identifying as black.
Yeah.
Because this is a topic that he has wanted to get out on blast. Which, see, he does believe in systemic racism.
Mission accomplished.
The sole body that I heard him refer to as being systemically racist was the teachers union. But the interview with Hotep is worth watching. I mean, you've got two intelligent gentlemen having a reasonable conversation where people are not shrieking at one another. So just in that, it's worth a little personal investigation.
Do you think he was, he meaning Adams, was about a gnat's eyelash away from getting booted off of YouTube as well?
Yes.
Because I
probably.
think if he's playing such a dangerous game by licking the third rail,
Oh yeah.
that I think if he had been booted off of YouTube as well, this would be playing out far differently, because then he could shout into the void on alternative media all he wants, because Rumble is just not there yet. Close. Close. I mean, it's getting there, but I don't think today I don't think today it's where it needs to be yet.
If he goes to a backup for doing Dilbert, it'll be his locals account, because you can set that up as a subscription. Because he's not a fool. You know, if you can still make money, make the money. You know, I mean, Adams isn't in the business of giving away what he doesn't want to give away. But the it'll be intriguing, because pretty much everybody rushed to not be last in condemning him.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's kind of why he found a natural home last weekend in that interview with Hotep Jesus, because I can guarantee you Hotep Jesus doesn't give two solid hoo-has about popular opinion in that regard.
Well, Prospero, there's an old adage. I mean, I can't claim it. I don't even remember how far back it goes. But there's 3 questions that you should ask yourself usually before you open your mouth, especially in public. Should it be said?
Yes.
Should it be said by me?
Yes.
Should it be said by me now?
Now.
That came up obliquely in their conversation. I would have said no in this instance.
Well, I think yes to number 1.
Yes.
Probably not to number 2. And definitely not to number 3. The thing is that Scott Adams isn't doing this for money. He's doing this because I think he enjoys feeling relevant. And I believe that is all that this is. And he realized that his trajectory he was on was going to sort of end on its own anyway. Because with the whole ESG thing, he was just sort of whittling away. So he's just like, I'm just going to go all in. And once all the eyeballs are turned on me, then I can do something. He just wants to feel relevant. And if it works for him, fine.
He actually used the term that he is an energy vampire. Or an energy...
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
Energy demon. So he feeds off the kind of attention, negative or positive, that comes from doing something like this. So in that regard, yeah, he wasn't asking himself any questions. He was just, I think I'm going to blow the lid off this puppy right now and see what happens.
Yeah,
I think sometimes he's just darkly amused by.
I wouldn't let myself hope that to be true. I hope you're right, Prospero.
I think she is. Right. I mean, you see it in. I mean, he hasn't had that much attention over the years, but I mean, this kind of pushback and cancel culture stuff is really coming to a head now.
Very entertaining.
But you see it in his comics. He's made some controversial stuff, he's kind of gotten a little bit of attention up until now, and then this is him flicking the cigarette in their face, going, "Yeah, fuck you, I don't care."
Well,
And I think
well,
though,
hold on. We need to move on to the next thing, or skip the next thing. But Skep, you've got something I think you're dying to say. Just go ahead and say it, and then functional, and then we're going to move on.
No, mine it would open up a whole nother. We'll do it another time. Just
I appreciate your discretion. Go functional.
No,
finish us off.
Yeah, just quickly, like, he is in a position that he can do this and walk away relatively scot-free. The memas or the dude on social media who gets canceled, who from his blue collar job, he's not going to survive.
Yeah.
The same way that Scott can. So I think he's intentionally doing this to, like, hey, let's start talking about this shit because we're going down a dark path.
He's not just going to survive; he's going to thrive because he's got enough money. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about this just very briefly. Lori Lightfoot was such a terrible mayor that as an incumbent, she managed to get 17% of the vote in Chicago. That is a staggering failure that by any... How long has it been since an incumbent has not won as mayor in Chicago? It's like
40 years.
40 years.
40 years.
Which is basically forever.
And that was during the daily transition time. There was a lot up and down.
A lot of turmoil in those days.
This might be a better thing to talk to somebody like Adam about, but they've got two new candidates going into a runoff. One is supported by the teachers union. The other one is supported by the police association. So, and of course, both of them are spending quite a bit of time talking about crime, because why wouldn't you? When you're talking about Chicago, it's kind of hard not to talk about crime. This is Geode's favorite site, I think. Well, one of his favorite, heyjackass.com, which only gives you infographics about how bad the crime is in Chicago.
Hey, Jackass.
It's a whole site of statistics and infographics about how bad things are in Chicago, where the murders are taking place, how many people get, injured, all of this sort of thing.
I'd love to know who's running that.
We could just put that in the chat for people to amuse themselves with later, maybe.
I don't know who Skep, but I mean, not all heroes wear capes. Let's just put it that way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Some of them have donkey ears.
So we're going to get a little bit of time back and just gloss over that, if that's okay. So, Functional, Are you ready to talk about this?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I've kind of been gushing at this. So, as people know, we've been getting this sort of bread trail crumbs kind of news about what's been going on with Trudeau and basically corruption at the highest level of my government. And we've recently gotten this report, this leak from CSIS, which is the Canadian Secret Intelligence Service. So it's our version of the CIA. These people are the people who would know the nitty-gritty behind the scenes. Like if anybody's disposed of a hooker and it needed to be disappeared, they know about it. And what this CSIS report said was, yes, there is definitely money going from the CCP to certain members of both, and mostly, the Liberal Party and the Conservatives. There's two Conservatives, I believe. And we'll get to that in a minute. Because in 2019, CSIS warned the government that there was foreign interference in our elections. And it was specifically refer to Trudeau and other liberals around him. And their criticism, and the public criticism, is they've been way too slow in responding about any of this. So it's kind of like, gee, you think they're innocent if they're, waiting this long? So recently, just the other day, Trudeau, in response to this accusation by the Canadian Intelligence Service, he said, "It's certainly a sign that security within CSIS needs to be reviewed, and I'm expecting CSIS to take the issue very seriously." He's blaming them. He's saying that they're the criminals here because they're publicly releasing how there are foreign powers controlling certain parts of the government, and the government has ignored it. Finally, though, they've been on hiatus since February 17th, and they're starting up on March 6th. They finally tabled in the House a discussion on the foreign election interference. In the House of Commons has been on break, so as soon as they get back, they're going to be talking about this. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens there. And finally, the Liberals have said yes, there is interference, and they set up a nonpartisan groups to investigate.
Non-partisan.
Well, how much money? Okay, stupid American question here.
Sure.
How much money are we talking about? And did this go to them as individuals or into their like campaign money where they'll have to launder it somehow before they can make use of it?
Well, there is one claim that has been they've given evidence that there was a Chinese billionaire. This is crazy shit.
Do I need to get the allegedly out, or is this actually
Yes.
a fact?
Allegedly.
I mean,
This crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
ISIS has released this, and they do have receipts. So, but allegedly, Chinese billionaire donates $1 million to various peoples. 200,000 of that went to the Trudeau Foundation. Now, remember, we covered a story not too long ago, probably about half a year ago, that he was under fire for his charity run by his wife is basically laundering money, allegedly. So they release a statement saying, oh, we didn't know. So we're going to give back this Chinese billionaire his money. However, China had already reimbursed the billionaire for the donations.
Ooh.
Wow.
So
Okay.
the head.
See, Daisy.
So this organization, this nonpartisan group, to do this sort of investigation is called the Site Task Force, and they refer to information brought to them by CSIS, our intelligence service, the CSE, the Communication Security Establishment, the GAC, the Global Affairs Canada Board, and the RCMP. If you think that entire list is already kind of suspect, aside from CSIS does do good work, and that they're the ones who are exposing this shit. Okay,
The stuff.
it is as
Nerd.
suspect as you would think. The GAC, the GSC, they're just levers of his tyranny, allegedly.
RCMP in particular.
So the people on this board, there's one Bloc Québécois member, one NDP member, 2 Conservatives, and 4 Liberals. It didn't exist until this board didn't exist until the Liberals took power. And so the person who appointed this panel is Mr. Maurice Rosenberg, the CEO of the Trudeau Foundation. Oh!
Wow.
Imagine my
And
shock.
he was appointed by Trudeau to write the report, the efficacy report on the panel.
Of course he was.
Wow.
Is this just not like
Kind of
And
naked.
This is Clinton level.
Yeah,
This is grassy knoll territory.
Yeah.
oh, it is so deeply egregiously like
They don't care.
Now
it's
they
right
don't.
in our face.
The
Skep,
fix
and
is
even
in.
even imagine tomorrow the CIA walking out and saying Hunter Biden is an incestuous crackhead criminal. Blah, 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 blah. This is a complete hypothetical situation. Susan or whatever new Susan's name is.
Yeah.
And Hunter Biden and his
second.
father is just as corrupt in dealings with other countries and whatever. Like this is if the CIA came out tomorrow and said, yes, this is the most deep-seated level of infiltration by a foreign power into our country at the highest level of office, it would blow your minds. And it's so telling. You follow these breadcrumbs and everybody's just kind of like shrugging their shoulders. But now we find this kind of stuff is coming to fruition. Oh boy. Oh boy. As a friend told me, she could hear the opposition in their garage sharpening their blades on a whetstone, waiting for these hearings to publicly go after them.
There's a
Because,
question from
I
the
mean-
chat if you want to take it. What's Canada's law on campaign donations?
Well, first of all, first and foremost, it can't be from a foreign government. Like that's clear and cut.
What if you launder it
cannot
through a foreign billionaire? Is that
then that's fine.
that's fine?
Yeah.
This is fine.
Mm.
I look forward to hearing about how this is going to play out. I also look forward to Prime Minister's question times, where he's going to have this boilerplate milk toast answer, and he's just going to repeat it no matter what the question is. Because we've seen that before. The last time he got in trouble, he just sat there and just gave the same answer over and over and over again, even if it had nothing to do with the question.
Yeah.
That's
He just doesn't care.
sanctimonious.
It's like he doesn't care.
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
No, that's
And
Yeah.
remember, my fellow knuckleheads. It all started with because it's 2015.
Because
That
it's the
clear
current
red
year.
flag, because it's current year. That clear red flag that we said, oh my God, here's the new speak. Well, here's the seed. Here's the fruit that seed bore. Ooh. But you know what? Luckily, why I'm able to be optimistic is because we do have a strong opposition in this country. I don't even mean the party. You can blame us for sure.
Yeah.
But an opposition of more moderates. There's less people who are die in the woods red or blue, you know. So luckily we have that strong opposition and we have the strong moderates. So politically something good should happen. Whether or not, Skep, to answer your first sort of comment, whether or not he'll see any repercussions from this,
Mhm.
be financial or criminal or whatever, I doubt it. These people never do.
No.
Yeah, my money's on
Oh.
him getting away with it. I
Bingo.
almost don't even want to bring up the next topic because it's so incredibly terrible. It's going to be a real battle
We'll
not
talk
to use
fast.
profanity here. Lisa Edwards, 50, she had a stroke. She went to the hospital. They discharged her from the hospital, and somehow somebody got their wires crossed and called the police to remove her from the property after she'd been discharged.
Hold. She had a stroke. She went to one hospital. She stayed the night. She was discharged, even though she told them that she was not well. She was still not well. And you had a stroke. You don't spend the night and then get discharged. Goes to another hospital seeking aid because she's still in an emergency state.
Mhm.
And then they kicked her out of that one.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
police
important that
removed
she
her.
Yeah.
They basically arrested her to get her out of the second hospital. She was complaining about being in terrible distress. They mocked her and laughed at her on body camera. Gave her just no human sympathy whatsoever.
Treated her
And
like a
she
piece of
basically passed away in their custody. What was it, like a half hour after they picked her up? Within a half hour?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just... this qualified immunity thing really needs to have an asterisk added to it. We don't need to belabor the point. This is really probably a good Prospero thing, but
I'm here.
the duty of care when you arrest somebody like that, especially if you're arresting them at a hospital and they're saying they just had a stroke, I have a feeling, a cash payout doesn't really do anything to bring this woman back. There's nothing you can really do to bring Mima back at this point. I just get so disgusted. I don't think that all cops are bad at all. Some cops are bad, and some departments really tend to concentrate the bad cops. This seems like one of the ones that's not so good.
And I don't want to. Oh, sorry.
No, I think there is an endemic us against them to the extent, and the defund the police people have not helped us by any stretch. You have actually, since the defund the police movement began to see more and more instances of callous disregard
Mhm.
among police forces. I've long contended that their insularity from genuine civilian law is unhealthy. The thing that it inhibits that is we don't have tort reform. If we had tort reform, we could eliminate some of the petty, ridiculous nuisance suits that are brought when there are no grounds. If there were a penalty to be paid by the individual,
The frivolous lawsuits
Right.
were really
bringing
recognized
the
as frivolous.
groundless
But
lawsuit.
they always say what's a chilling. It'll have a chilling effect on people's ability to be made whole. You know that whole tort argument.
Right, but that you have yet to demonstrate that. They say it will do that, but
Well, they think that if you demonstrated that chilling, that would be disastrous.
Well, that's why we need our laboratories of states now.
Oh, you mean states' rights? You mean where people get
Yes.
together and live together according to their certain
Yes.
local preferences? That'd be great.
Yes, because
That'd be awesome.
if you had a state like Texas with a very sizable population and
Yipper.
a number of significantly large cities, legislate away qualitative immunity.
Of course, if you do that, you will have officers
after they have tort reform fully in place.
Yeah.
They have partial tort reform. They don't have full tort reform. This is a
they've got to have partial immunity at least.
yes, yes, but it needs to be better defined.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like civic asset forfeiture needs to be better defined.
I think Harry put it well when he said it needs to have an asterisk with it. Obviously, it needs to be adjusted. We beat the heck out of this. This is obviously outrageous example. And we're going to have more of this until some of the things that you're suggesting, Prospero, are taken seriously. I think you're absolutely right.
Unless and until we do something about this, we're going to have two highly entrenched sides. Those who despise cops and everything about them merely because cops are granted these immunities. And
do you know what those kids in the deep ghetto who are already calling the cops pigs,
right?
The little 8-year-old kids, you've seen this stuff on Twitter, and they're kicking the cops and calling the cops pigs. That reminds me of the Palestinian children.
Yes.
When the IDF has some interaction between Palestinian, usually because Palestinian try to kill an Israeli, and goes up to him, throws a rock, or tries to knife an Israeli soldier, and it's an 8-year-old kid. That's the same kind of enmity, the same kind of othering. That's what this balkanization, this othering
is
God
bad.
E pluribus unum for crying out loud.
It is an old othering is an old autocrat's handbook page.
Yes.
It's how you divide a society enough that you can assume authority and have the majority of people sign away their freedoms for security. This is the brown shirts versus black shirts in the streets of Italy. It is a technique. Never let crises go to waste. And
we're the good guys again.
Yeah. They're at home with their heads down, not paying attention because that's so much safer.
Yeah.
It's also not the first public institution to be under such attack, right? Like we see that all over the place, even at the highest forms of some governments. Cough, cough.
Well, Yeah, it's
in this case, the police. You're right. It has been the defund the police narrative, but it's also, for a while now, it's been the erosion of standards. They keep getting lower and lower. Pandemic mandates in some places,
Mhm.
massive declines, or I should say spikes, in early retirements and people
You
being
al-
relieved of their positions on police forces. It's
we also have quite a military to policing pipeline. And I am not criticizing either group exclusively, but that I do not believe is healthy.
Well, given what's going on in the deserts and the wildernesses of
Correct.
California with the drug cartels, my patience for the militarization of the police is a lot more than it was, say, a year ago. It's, you know, it's fine to have ideas about things, and then when your ideas and your philosophies hit reality, sometimes you have to reassess. I mean, I don't like the idea of giving used military equipment to some local police force so they can go in there and essentially send a tank through somebody's front door for reasons, you know, maybe reasons that don't make sense. I'm not in favor of militarizing the police. However,
That's not what I meant by the military to police pipeline.
but a lot of the military to police pipeline, I mean, just what it does, though, I think it's good in some circumstances to have police that are capable of actually dealing with things, especially near the border, where in a sense they're almost doing the National Guard's job sometimes.
Well, since we've abrogated the authority and tied the hands of the Border Patrol, yes. We had an agency whose job it was to patrol the border. Obviously, they have been hobbled to the point that they can no longer do it.
They're ineffectual. Yeah.
Which is why you have the need, and we have a come on in, everybody, wink, wink, nod, nod.
Plastered all over the internet.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, back channel information game going on. What I meant, though, by militarization of the police, I wasn't saying the militarization of the police with them getting MRAPs and that kind of stuff. I'm talking about where they get their personnel.
Oh, I view it as part of the same package. Personnel, equipment, the whole deal. But obviously the personnel bring the training methods. But in this particular case, older woman at a hospital, left side of her body's not working very well. She's saying she had a stroke. These cops are trained to detect altered states. If you pull somebody over, you need to know, am I calling for an ambulance? Do I need to get Narcan? You know, am I dealing with somebody who's driving under the influence? They have to be able to, on a basic level, make those kind of assessments. When you've got somebody who's presenting as having a stroke at a hospital, you know, her
turfed.
age, all the stuff.
And they get turfed? You know, I mean, why did the hospital turf her for crying out loud?
Yeah.
Because
there's a lot of blame to go around here, isn't there?
Well, there is an enormous amount of blame because the instigating issue is that she was turfed out of the hospital when she was presenting with stroke.
Two hospitals.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that does not speak very well to the staff at either of those hospitals. Well, you know, if you devalue and other seniors enough in your society, you also get a certain degree of callousness like this, which is, she's old, she's fat, who the fuck cares? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That one stands.
No, I understand. And I knew there would be some of them, but there is a question that I have here about this story, which makes no sense to me. She's got all this family commenting about her after she's passed. Where the hell were they when she was in the hospital and getting discharged? If there's all these people who are all, you know, upset about it now, why weren't you there helping me, Mom,
she
make
was
her
a famous
case?
son.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think maybe you have what's called a trash cascade going on here.
A trashcade. A trashcade.
Yes,
raccoons. Yeah.
Yes, a
trashalanche.
Yeah, that would be.
Like
I have a feeling that we may be dealing with so many useless individuals,
Mhm.
genuinely useless, callous, uncaring, excuses for meat sacks involved in this, because nobody was looking after grandma.
Yeah.
Nope.
Clearly, and nobody showed an ounce of human compassion among your other agencies. You know, we've always been told you'll be helped by the good doctors and nurses. And we've always been told that you will be helped by the police, fire, and ambulance people, that they are public servants and they are good people. We stood out in the streets and we applauded all of them during the pandemic. And surprise, surprise, they're as base and vulgar and disgusting as the rest of the general population. It just seems to be a pretty high concentration in, that was Knoxville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a disappointment. That's a university town.
Yeah, it is.
You expect better out of hospitals in a university town.
I expect better out of humanity. I expect better out of the cops. I expect better out of the hospitals. I expect better out of a lot of them. But it's not going to get any better, because now we're going to talk about Cori Bush.
Just quick.
Oh, yay.
Sure, go ahead.
Just quick before we go on to the Bush.
Yes.
I know I'm the young man on stream tonight, but it's always been a really deep-seated fear of mine to be in a situation like that where nobody's around when you are just like at that point. It's terrifying, and that story really hit me, right in the feels.
Yep.
So to the Bush.
Yeah.
Well, I actually know of somebody who recently was dealt with a stroke under indigent care in California, and the outcome was completely different. I'm not saying California is the greatest place in the world, but at least it's not Knoxville. So if I ever pass out without my ID while I'm out exercising or something, hopefully I'll get the good treatment. But anyway,
I hope
they take you to Knoxville.
Exactly.
I hope
Go
the
to
good
VA.
people of Knoxville, who happen to be in a city in one of the more pretty parts of the world,
Truly.
shame and name these people that they rail against them. This is where you need stocks and rotten tomatoes and cabbages.
Need a mass nut kicking is what they need.
Yes.
Okay. So Cori Bush, there's a complaint against her with the Federal Election Commission because it looks like, in addition to hiring bodyguards and private security, she's just sort of been giving $60,000 to her husband
Embezzlement.
Yes,
Embezzlement.
it used to be
to provide security too, even though the place where Cori Bush lives, it's actually a legal requirement that you have to be licensed to do that type of work. So it looks a little sus. Not that this is a surprise, because these people, they don't get paid that much. And if they don't do graft and corruption, what are they going to do?
This is St. Louis.
This doesn't surprise me.
This is
Cori
St.
Bush
Louis.
is just terrible.
St. Louis is terrible.
The fact that she's a hypocrite is not a surprise to anybody.
She's not the first one either.
Look at what
She's not the first one to have done this type of stuff.
Oh no!
Remember, there was a certain Cortex that was paying her then boyfriend or whatever as well. Like,
yep,
they flaunted it
while she's driving around in her was she given that Tesla, or did she get it loaned to her? And then of course she had her below market rate apartment and everything else. Yeah, it's just
disposal. I don't even know what this does.
They're just like a bunch of sharks in a swimming pool with buckets of chum being poured in. I just despise these people.
It's crony,
permission to just move on.
crony capitalism at its best, man.
Hurry.
You're looking at it.
Okay, well, we have to talk about my nemesis, Elizabeth Holmes. She has given birth to her second child and now is asking the court to not put her in prison because, as she says, to delay the start of her 11-year prison sentence because she has two very young children to be with. The court filing last week represents the first public acknowledgement that Holmes has given birth to her second child. Holmes was pregnant during her November 2022 sentencing. Her lawyers laid out several reasons to delay the prison sentence, pending an appeal of her conviction, arguing that she's not a flight risk. She did book a one-way flight to Mexico last year. Or a danger to the community.
For one, correct?
Not a danger to the community? Really not a danger to the community?
It also said she has 2 young children, but didn't reveal when her second child was born or their gender.
Uh-huh.
Remember when she first said, I can't go to prison. I'm pregnant. I can't go to prison. I just had a kid. I can't go to prison. I now have to take care of my small child. Like,
she's going to stretch this out for, as long as possible. I still think she's going to, she's hoping maybe that they'll just forget about her. The 10, 15 years will go by and somebody go, where's Liz? We don't know. Weren't we supposed to put her in jail? And then she'll be on a beach in Mexico. But
I have an argument to make on the basis of her having booked a one-way ticket to Mexico that, if I recall correctly, was for one passenger only. When she had a child, that for the benefit of these children, putting that woman in prison is the single best thing you can do, because no one should be raised by a sociopath.
Nanny's is gonna raise them anyway. But I thought, just pretty rich blonde woman, maybe let's take a look at the whole idea of mothers in jail. So I found the Equal Justice Initiative. We're looking here for facts, not for opinions, because this is stupid. But they're saying more than 60% of women in state prisons and nearly 80% of those in jail have minor children.
Of which they're probably the sole support, because we reward people for not having making healthy choices.
Wait. You're saying people who make poor choices make other poor choices?
Yes, it's stunning. It is stunning. And all those simple things that Harry has listed before: don't have children too young, graduate from high school, get a job, do real adult things.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. And it applies equally across all religions, races, creeds, and colors.
Works for everybody.
It does. It's
a liberal type person, classical liberal. If you want to sleep with people before marriage, I'm okay with that. Just don't be a hoe. And that goes for men and women. Don't
use birth control, but also do try not to be too profligate.
Don't just give it away. It's
getting us back on track. The thing about this, the argument is that somehow mothers are special. I love this argument here. To have a mother in prison is like a primal wound, Shemp told the Times. 6 years ago, she founded Girls Embracing Mothers, a program that provides monthly visits and counseling for girls and their incarcerated mothers in Texas. The program has worked with 52 incarcerated women, but all but 2 were single mothers. Now, it's like anytime you have a
4%.
parent in jail, it's obviously going to affect the kids. But somehow, dads don't count? Moms are just this special, nurturing. If the kids fall down and they skin their knee, who's going to blow on their wound when the Bactine goes on before the bandage goes on? Dad can't do that. If you look at the statistics in terms of kids thriving, dad disappearing is a pretty bad thing too. None of this means that criminals should not have to go to jail, though.
Right.
That's the bottom line. It's like, I'm sorry, you do the crime. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Don't do it.
In Elizabeth Holmes' case, I think the thing to do initially, and it solves a lot of problems, is to cut her head off. If you cut her head off, a lot of things happen. The kids become orphans. They become wards of the state. They can be fostered out and maybe adopted and raised by a loving
rich
person,
father.
Maybe even a rich father. And the other thing is she can no longer harm people. And I promise you, as long as that woman is alive, she will harm anyone who has the misfortune to get tangled up with her.
I think you're wrong, Skep. You've obviously never fought a Hydra before. If you cut off its head, 2 more are going to take its place.
You actually think
we have to slingshot her into the sun? It has to be full incineration.
No,
Don't
none of
need
her
a-
biomedicine stuff works functional. If it worked, she might have pulled that off. She could have gene therapy. She could have CRISPR'd herself into a Hydra.
No, but I mean,
Just think of all the thinking, all the big thinky stuff she could do if she had
I
more than
love
one
that
head.
idea.
in
I
all
love that idea,
seriousness,
Harry.
I liked
Yeah.
the spirit of that agency she set up. In that, I like the idea of counseling, and depending on the crimes of the parent, like if they tried to kill their own child, like I don't think you should be setting up visits with this person behind bars, or if they're egregiously violent or something like that. But if it was like petty larceny, shoplifting, whatever, yeah, okay. The spirit of it, sure, but at the same time, I don't want people like Elizabeth Holmes's daughters to be to like
Presuming
visit this
gender.
type of person in a prison and be influenced by them, because they are that type of
cut
person.
her
Like
head
you
off.
said, like you said, Prospero, she's that type of person. She's that insidious
She is
sociopath.
a dark sociopath. I mean, she's not that, I mean, sociopathy has
One
its
quick cut. Problem
degrees.
solved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No muss, no fuss that you don't need.
Well, it gets difficult to argue.
Acapulco Gold is badass weed.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm quite as draconian as my fellow panelist, but I want to see this woman wearing prison gray, cleaning bathrooms in the prison.
Yeah.
For
Being
20
Bertha's
years,
bitch.
Right.
and then she gets a promotion
Merry Christmas. Here's a new sponge.
to the scullery, and after she's done 20 in the scullery, if she's still among us, then she can be promoted to go, I don't know, folding laundry or something.
11 years is such a light sentence for what she did.
No kidding.
Yeah.
She ought to have been put away for
You know,
life.
I mean, Bankman-Fried should get multiple life sentences, honestly, but 11 years for what she did is just nothing.
I hate what she did so bad.
I know it really bugs you.
Selling hope. Selling hope.
The stuff.
I
So-
maintain it's still an act of violence. You're trying.
Yes.
You're taking resources away from somebody so that what's the end goal when you try to take stuff away from people, that they don't have that stuff to survive? And yeah, then sometimes people die because they invested into something, and then when it comes to their retirement, they look and they're like, no, there's nothing. They die.
Where's the old woman that beat Charles, what's his face, with her pocketbook? Remember the Lincoln Trust, Skep?
Oh, I thought we were talking about laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
no,
Ruth
she
Buzzy.
did. She did. This woman went full Ruth Buzzy on Keating
on Artie Johnson, yeah.
in the courtroom. I would love to have. I mean, see, there's a side of me that thinks what you do is you turn
SNL Sting Animals.
these people over to their victims.
Well, I have a note here.
In
it's
a
just
quiet
basically
room somewhere. And
yeah. Themes, tags for this, and my comment for this to keep my mind on track, so I remember what it's about. It just says, "Mom looks good in orange." That's my comment to keep me from losing track of this stuff.
No, she would look good in orange, so no, put her in gray. She'll look drab.
Oh gosh, I'm enjoying the comments from chat. That's excellent. Although apparently I disappointed Assassin. I guess it was probably just a moment of weakness on my part. Let's see. All right. The next thing is, where is the next thing?
Change places.
I saw this thing. This was something that was on Twitter that's been floating around. Said, my favorite new factoid is that they hit dead popes on the head 3 times with a special dead pope hammer just to ensure that they are in fact dead. Look at that hammer. Doesn't that look nice?
It is a Roman hammer. Oh my God, that thing is awesome.
It's a Roman Catholic hammer.
It is really awesome, but obviously this is just a preposterous statement and they don't actually do that. So of course, USA Today had to do a fact check of it. Fact check, Pope's death confirmed with traditional means, not hammer.
Oh, hammer! 1 ton hammer is just sitting at home quietly weeping.
The claim when a pope dies, his death is confirmed in part by tapping his head with a hammer. Yeah, our rating false. Yeah.
Yeah,
When the Pope dies, you can't touch this.
Kel Surprise.
we just get out the mirror. That's
I
what
love
they
it.
do.
I love it when people give super serious responses to preposterous things, especially the whole fact-checking thing. Modern means are used to determine if a pope has died, according to credible news reports. Tapping a deceased pontiff's head with a hammer is not mentioned in any official documents related to the procedure following a pope's death. The hammer pictured in the social media post was used in a ceremonial opening of a holy door. Yeah. So there is no special dead pope hammer.
Oh, God.
Although that looks really cool. You said it looks like a Warhammer thing, didn't you, Functional?
Oh yeah, I would totally be inspired and grateful to wield that into battle. But it looks like something right out of Warhammer 40,000.
I think
Like,
that's
I'm
what
looking over at my desk now, going like, "Oh my god, it looks like
you need one of those." I think that's what the papal cobbler uses to make those fancy red shoes.
What I need is this is in a 3D object file, like 3D scans, so I could print little ones for my little army men to wield into battle.
I'm going to get right on it.
And have Deus Volt put on their armor.
We're actually getting pretty close to having good scanning technology for 3D models. It's getting there. It's still very much in its infancy, and it hasn't caught up with the printing side. But oh my god, it is, man! Star Trek can't happen soon enough.
Well, speaking of stars, Sun unleashes powerful X2 class flare.
Ow.
Let's play this video with the sound turned off. Well, it is playing.
I could
There's
see
no
when
sound
that
in
happened.
space, Harry.
Did the sun go to Taco Bell again?
X2 class solar flare.
Like a little bit of material just left the sun.
Yeah. Well, the thing about
Little bit.
solar
Look at
flares
that.
is they
Look at that. Look at
Yeah.
that.
they have a bunch
my
of
God.
categories for these, and X is the most powerful ones. Now, X2 is a pretty potent flare. It was enough that it actually screwed up radio communications below the 300 megahertz frequency.
What was
Which
the
is-
Carrington?
Sorry?
What was the Carrington event? What level would that have been?
Well, they the meter only goes up to X28.
Okay.
And the last big explosion we had, what was it, 2002, 2006, I forget. Every 11 years we have these cycles, right? So we're approaching solar maximum in terms of the cycle right now.
Under maximum. So.
Yeah, so we are going to be seeing more and more of this stuff, but hopefully nothing fun will happen, like ejecta from the sun hitting our upper atmosphere and causing the aurora borealis to come down to the equator, which would be fun. Yeah.
No, let's hope.
I mean, an
not.
X2 is not the end of the world, but there have been events in the 21st century that have actually stopped GPS from working temporarily. This one just sort of screwed up stuff below 30 megahertz, which really is like AM radio and some FM and just not a lot of anything that we care about right now.
How long does
Actually,
the interruption occur?
It was
Out of
just recent.
curiosity.
It was Friday.
Okay, but how long does the interruption generally occur?
Well,
Duration.
it depends.
Duration.
The flare itself sent out this big electromagnetic burst. If we're talking
Right.
about like, ejecta hitting the atmosphere, it can be days. But
Right.
this is a matter of hours usually.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the days part would be difficult because it would ground all kinds of travel, and it's kind of interesting because 3.5 of the four of us here remember a time before GPS and before some of the satellite technology that's used now, when we did all kinds of rudimentary things, and now so much is reliant on.
Some of us have computed our position with nothing more
Yes,
than
it
a
is.
sextant and a watch.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, but what I mean is it's always interesting to me because it will cause an enormous amount of disruption. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it will not cause an enormous amount of disruption. I'm just always amazed with how it's the end of the world as we know it. People get.
Yeah, the people who have the the 5 pocket calculators in the trash can that they've made into a homemade Faraday cage. There's a certain amount of that. It's like, I'm sorry you don't know how to use a slide rule, but the if you
and
look
a week
at what
down, how much would that mean to most of the people who are the most paranoid about it? A week down to you, Harry, means an enormous amount.
Well, you go full Dark Angel, which is that Jessica Alba thing, which was actually a pretty good TV show back in the day. She,
easy, but good.
as apocalyptic things go, if you have power lines that run in long straight runs, it matters whether they go north to south or south to north. It's actually fairly possible to induce very, very, very large currents that would just destroy parts of the grid. But they know this already. There are fail safes in place. We actually know to kind of jog the lines so that they don't run in ways that essentially turn them into a giant armature in a generator. We have actually improved things substantially, which isn't to say that a big solar flare or an event that would actually heat the upper atmosphere, essentially causing the drag on low Earth orbit satellites to increase, could actually cause satellites to deorbit prematurely. There's a lot of bad things that could happen if the sun decides to get really uppity with us.
Yeah. A lot of those satellites, though, have enough fuel on board to adjust even for that kind of thing.
Well, if they've been launched since those
exactly since about 2012.
Yeah, pre-planning for solar flare or EMT and those kinds of things. Started because people get all worked up about EMTs and they're like, oh my God, what if North Korea does a bad thing with the thing with the thing? And it's like, yes, but there's a giant ball of fire sitting out there in our solar system that can be like, hey, you EMT, hold my beer.
I think you mean Echo Mike Papa, not Echo Mike Tango. But the EMTs, I worry about them too.
No, I'm sorry, EMP.
EMP.
Electromagnetic pulse. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes us trying to keep learning as much as we can about the sun so important, and like drives the aerospace industry to these things. I think that, some people get a little reactionary. We learned about solar flares and people are like, oh shit, gotta shield my shit. But we still don't know all about the sun.
Well, they're also disregarded when it comes
comparatively
to climate forecasting. When Harry was talking, I muttered Maunder maximum, because there's a Maunder minimum. And when you have minimum solar flare activity, you've had some of the coldest weather in what would be considered Western European culture experienced, where you had Valley Forge. That winter was a Maunder minimum. It does have an impact on our climate to some extent, and we know only part of the equation.
Yeah, well, we do not have time for this conversation, but I had to catch myself. I was about to screw everything up. Skep, was it you that sent this to me? The thing about the next generation of spacesuits?
No, but that was Geodes, I think.
Okay, yeah. So essentially, NASA has realized that the spacesuits that they're using now were designed for. See, I'm going to go ahead and let this play without the sound turned on. The spacesuits that they were using now were actually designed for the space shuttle, and they're sort of kind of falling apart. And also, as things become more diverse, air quotes here, it used to be that the spacesuits came for the space shuttle came small, medium, large. That sizing scheme isn't working quite so well with the astronauts that they're hiring right now. I think I danced around that pretty well.
Yeah, nicely done.
Yeah, thank you. So there's 2 companies that are actually working on, probably under Space Act agreements. They're trying to get commercial companies to create a new generation of spacesuits, both for the ISS and for lunar and Martian exploration, which I think is going to be really cool because we do have totally new materials to work with that we didn't have before. If you think about the kind of technology that we had back in the Apollo days and even the space shuttle days, it's pretty primitive compared to what we can do now.
Oh yeah.
things are just not going well. They have spent nearly $1 billion trying to redesign the spacesuits, and just taking all of the data that we have, like here's everything we have, and just giving it to a few different companies and saying, just come up with something. And they've also put it together in such a way that if another company comes along with a better idea, they can kick the existing companies to the curb and go with that one. So
Good.
I think that this is a kind of thing where NASA is really well off just letting private industry deal with it versus hiring a bunch of contractors and having a bunch of civil servants sit around in a bunch of buildings and try to put something together. That's just,
definitely.
You're going to get a way better product out of the private industry than you are, even though it really is a big companies like Raytheon, or have a company that owns a company that's making the suit. These aren't small companies that are building this. It's not a ma and pa thing, but it's still going to be better than what NASA's going to do. Yeah. It is.
The government just has to let the rabbit out and let the dogs run. First dog to the rabbit wins every time.
Well, the difference between capitalism and socialism here is the socialist spacesuit designer wants to build a spacesuit that will not get him fired. That's his quality standard. The capitalist has to build a spacesuit that's better than everybody else's spacesuit and costs the least amount. It's cruel, it's ugly, and it's brutally effective.
I disagree with you again, Skep. I don't think it's going to get them fired, or the consequences getting fired. I think it's getting what did Pauly call it? Unalived. Communism, unalived. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you get the Chernobyl treatment.
You speak.
Yeah, I mean, nobody gets fired in communism. You just disappear.
Yeah.
But I mean, even from the things that we've seen in this video compared to, what we see, that more imaginative people who don't have to work within certain technical specifications. I'm talking specifically about, science fiction shows, movies, that kind of thing. I can see that there's a lot of influence there. That first one kind of also looked like hockey pads with a giant dome on your head, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Well, trying to make spacesuits for the moon in particular is the suck, because essentially you've got almost like a ball covered in diatomaceous earth.
Yes.
It gets into every little joint. You want them to be able to move around and do stuff.
Yeah. It's
but
all
at the same
jagged
time,
it clings to everything.
Yeah, it's just absolutely the worst. Why would anybody want to go to the moon? Well, probably just to annoy everybody else who isn't American.
Right.
I went to the moon.
But I look forward to seeing what's going to come out of this. The prototypes are being delivered in 2025 and 2026, respectively. So we'll definitely be coming back to this at some point.
Is it the everyday astronaut who's going to get to go around the moon?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to be Stacey Abrams.
No.
Female spacewalk.
No. It
didn't have the pregnant suits.
It was a YouTuber that got picked for the crew of a group to be sent in a free return trip.
So it wasn't Ellie in space? I mean, she's literally got in space in the name of her YouTube channel.
No, it was...
She's trying so hard to be Elon's next girlfriend, it's not even funny. Sorry, Ellie.
Diatomaceous earth. Just mentioning it, we had a DE filter in our swimming pool.
Yeah, Tim Dodd, also known as Everyday Astronaut, is an American science communicator, YouTube content creator, photographer, and musician. In 2022, Dodd was chosen as a crew member for Dear Moon, the first ever civilian mission to the moon. Space.com. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yeah,
cool.
It's just
Well, hopefully he'll get a new suit, because the current ones, on 2 separate occasions, they almost killed the astronauts wearing them because the helmet part started to fill up with water.
Yeah, those things suck out loud.
It has happened twice now.
It's happened twice that's gotten out. I understand that there's a lot of malfunctions with those suits.
Yeah, well, they're old and they're terrible and they need to be replaced. Well, speaking of things that are terrible, Ford has submitted a patent. Well, it did it a couple years ago, but it only has come to light recently. Ford submits patent for car that repossesses itself or locks out locks drivers out of features if payments missed.
Oh,
Now,
God
this article
almighty.
is fantastic. There's so many great things in here. Like, if it's delinquent, maybe you'll just geofence it so that it'll only operate during the times that the person drives to and from work. Or maybe if it's self-driving, it could just drive itself away. And if the car isn't really worth very much and they're way behind on their payments, you could just have the self-driving car drive itself to a junkyard and then just get destroyed in the junkyard.
Yeah.
Ford is really going places with the number of ways they can really stick it to consumers who don't give them money.
Well, as long as the banks keep everything straight, that's great. But when they don't, oh boy.
Yep.
I have a question.
Be happy.
I have a question about
And the government takes it over.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about this. Will this be a thing where you have to pay to not have a feature?
Yes, probably.
I bet if you want to opt out of this, it will cost extra. It'll cost extra $1,000.
I think if you just buy the car in cash, you should be able to just go take an ice pick to whichever chips allow this to happen.
Yeah. My guess is it may only be installed on credit sales. They might be guarding against this issue because
how does it work?
I would hope an aftermarket.
Well, it's the patent doesn't necessarily. They didn't make like a tiny wooden model that implements all the features. Basically the patent. It says here. Let's see. Involves a series of computer interactions that would initiate a multi-step repossession procedure in the case of delinquency. That's their thing. Multi-step repossession procedure, essentially ratcheting up the pain until they ultimately just take your car away from you.
You realize multi-step repossession procedure is MSRP.
Yeah.
Just saying.
When an acknowledgement is not received within a reasonable period of time, the first computer may disable a functionality of a component of the vehicle or may place the vehicle in a lockout condition, the patent application said, referencing the computer controlled by the lending agency. A lockout condition may be lifted momentarily in case of an emergency to allow the vehicle to travel to a medical facility, like if Mima had a stroke.
Yeah.
The technology could theoretically be implemented in several vehicle classes, including both electric and internal combustion. Yeah, it just doesn't matter. I hate all of this subscription service nonsense.
Oh my
I
gosh,
really
yes.
do. I think the first thing that I brought up was almost 2 years ago, which was the motorcycle airbag vest that if you didn't pay the subscription fee, it just didn't protect you from death.
Yes.
It's like, we know you're going to die, but because you didn't pay us, we're just going to let it happen.
Yeah.
The
seeds of crime bear bitter fruit. Bye. See ya.
I think this is kind of a PR nightmare, don't you think?
Yes,
this
do.
particular thing. I don't think the optics of this are good at all.
The consumers
Judge and
will
jury.
hate this, and if you don't think Chevrolet and the competitors will advertise against this, you never have to worry about your Chevrolet locking you out if you miss a payment. Don't worry about that. Not like a Ford.
Well, the only usefulness that I could see is if it were applicable to the patent, applicable in all cars, and it could be used by those sharks that sell used cars.
Mm, maybe.
I have $1 billion idea. And yeah, where it was kind of what you were saying about how, the competitors would jump on the opposite. But a lot of people are just getting sick and fucking tired of all the computer components that are in a car. And maybe I'll bring this to the Dragon's Den or something. But if somebody could find a cheap, effective way to sell just very analog cars again. No computers, like you have your AM, FM radio with maybe a, stereo system, whatever. But there's no
an internal combustion engine.
No computers, no nothing. It's just analog.
You'll have that space where your feet hit the ground, Skep.
Yeah, but do.
Yeah, but do. I think that's good. There was another space story that segues nicely from what you were just saying here. Let's see.
What, Yabba Dabba Do Space?
No. Did I not load this thing? Okay, here. This is a little bit old. Automaton Rover for Extreme Environments, AREE. So essentially, they're looking at ways of building space probes that don't have all of those nasty computers and fragile components in them. Like if you wanted to send something to Venus or some other extreme environment, could we make a space probe that's almost more like a wind-up device that wouldn't have all those fragile electronics? You know, like a space golem. And I don't mean like the person golem. I mean like the magical idea. So you would actually, these things, there's a whole bunch of ideas that they were kicking around in this particular paper, up to and including gathering data and then encoding it on some sort of thing, almost like an analog record, obviously not made out of wax. The hardest part of all this, because you can make something that will use non-electronic computers, like a mechanical computing system to navigate. That we can do. You can have it move, you can have it go around and do all sorts of things without using a silicon brain in the thing. The hard part is the communications. Now, there are ways that they can actually harden the that part of it so that maybe it's able to get a signal off to something that's sort of safely located. Like I have a Bluetooth thing. I have a Bluetooth thing now that I can put in a roast that goes in my oven. Meter, MEATER. So I can actually cook a roast and have it send the stuff to my phone. Nice. That kind of technology, it is possible to broadcast without having big, elaborate electronics. But there are people working on space probes that could actually survive in these hostile environments. But it involves like undoing a whole bunch of modern thinking. Like you'd be way better to find like a 1960s NASA engineer who fell into a crevasse and got covered with snow, and then we unfreeze him and bring him back and put him in charge of this program. He would do way better than all the kids that are raised on like Nintendo Switch. We could just hire your dad. We'll just keep pumping him full of stem cells until he gets it done. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. Like,
it is really cool.
I didn't even see this one.
Sort of like your dumbed down car.
Yeah. I mean, mine is for
yeah.
a different, very.
It's analogous, though. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. To avoid all, like, if you want, like, off the grid kind of, you don't want to be totally off the grid. You still like the internet, but you don't want to be plugged into every last little bit of thing. I know with somebody like that, I would appreciate a car like that I didn't have to have all these extra computer components that could go wrong, that I could, oh, what's wrong? Oh, the fuel pipe is loose, or the oil pipe is loose. Oil hose is loose, whatever. Like the rubber's been worn down, something like that. Something I can roll up my sleeves and quickly change and fix, as opposed to, oh, this thing isn't working. Well, could it be any of the 5 computers between the pedal to the engine? Like, who knows?
Well, I mean, kids are kind of terrible now, unfortunately. There's all this talk about banning TikTok. People have all these little... that's not the right thing. This is the thing.
Oh, please not this.
Okay. TikToker covers parents' kitchen in peanut butter as prank. Dad not amused. Did you see this?
Clean kitchen.
No.
Gorgeous. Now everything covered in peanut butter.
What?
Kevin Millett says he spent hours covering his parents' Pennsylvania kitchen in peanut butter as a prank, and he didn't miss an inch. Millett says he pranks his parents almost every day, but Dad was not amused.
My dad just went downstairs, and I think he's...
Yeah?
You sick? We're gonna get into...
Yeah, I think we could let Corbin be in charge of the autonomous space probe program, don't you?
This is entrapment. That kid is yearning for a learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cruising for a bruising.
Yeah, TikTok was sort of a mistake. Well, there was also this thing. I think this is the thing you
was no mistake. That
said you didn't want to see. Virtual kissing device
China.
allows couple to share intimacy from long distance.
That's
no.
gross.
No.
I don't know.
Come on.
No, stop it.
Look, the cell phone goes right there,
Here's how
and it connects to it.
It has pressure sensors and actuators.
It's got pressure sensors and actuators, Skep. What, don't you like technology?
It can also transmit
Do you want these people to be sad and lonely?
The creator said the inspiration came from his own long-distance relationship.
The creator's inspiration came from a blow-up doll.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Humanity was a mistake. No, it's.
And what do you think is going to get stuck in that?
This is just making me sad.
Mm-hmm.
This just makes me sad. I can't even laugh.
Well,
it's
people
a symptom of a bigger disease of
well, they're saying it's because of the need because of long distance relationships, but I kind of feel like that's not how it's going to get used.
Well, yeah, going from one apartment to another is a pretty long.
I read Playboy for the articles.
Yeah.
They had good interviews back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Henry Kissinger, Woody Allen.
As a
great
16-year-old kids, that's the only reason I wanted to look at it.
Yeah, Gay and Wilson, fine cartoonist.
Gay and Wilson.
Gay and Wilson was an amazing cartoonist. Was he responsible for the Suck Mary Beth Suck blow as just a figure of speech?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
There's not a dirty word in it on New Susan with a beard.
Mm-hmm.
This is inching us closer and closer to Demolition Man being entirely prophetic. Like when we can transition from meat space into that virtual space sex thing that they had. Oh my God, we're already living in the happy joys time. Like they're trying to push that shit. That movie was way too prophetic, and this is.
So I have a movie for you from a more wholesome time. After everything collapses with the solar flares, I think this will be important. I think Skep will enjoy this movie. Learn Morse code in 20 minutes. Classic U.S. Army training. We're not going to spend 20 minutes learning Morse code, just so you know.
1946.
Don't worry, chat. We're not going to spend 20 minutes watching this. But this is great.
Then you've got to send rhythmic. It must be uniform, short. Bars, uniform, and long.
You want to know something sad? I've watched this entire thing. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're gonna get the signals from those Venus probes.
It's an army film on how to do Morse code. I love everything about this. I love that guy's haircut. I like everybody's haircut. I like those square shoulders. I like that giant
cut of his jib.
Morse code key. This is awesome.
What I love is the army guys look like army guys are supposed to. That's what an army uniform is actually supposed to look like. Wearing camo everywhere is just silly.
So functional, do you know why something like Morse code is actually useful? Do you know what its purpose is as opposed to just picking up a microphone?
It's binary?
Well, the thing is that to encode voice, you actually have to use a pretty wide band of spectrum.
Oh, right.
You basically grab a channel, and then if you're doing either amplitude or frequency modulation, it takes up a whole lot of space. You can, frequency-wise, you can, with Morse code, it's because it's discrete, you can use very low power and send a signal on a very narrow band of frequencies.
Yeah, extremely. Yeah.
So if you're good enough to actually use something like Morse code, you can go out with a 1 watt transmitter, and using Morse code, you can contact people halfway around the world.
Around the world. That's
it's in ham radio terms, it's what's called QRP. And Morse code is actually super, super cool. I think this is actually kind of fun, and there's people who do it for fun, but of the ham radio people that I know, I don't think I know any of them that are younger than me. So it's just a dying art, unfortunately.
As a young person, I tried to learn it, but I just couldn't.
Well, you didn't.
I'm terrible with learning languages.
But you didn't have anywhere to apply it either. You know.
Yeah, I did.
Well, I know, but
I was in cadets and then eventually tried out for the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've done survival training and all that stuff. But I'm terrible at languages, so I couldn't grasp the
alphabet
translation. Yeah, the alphabet, the translation, because it's a different way of thinking. But yeah, that's why I said like use there's it's going to be this type of binary communication that's hyper efficient for something like the Venus probe.
Well, yeah, the radio teletype, which sort of predates the internet, but when you talk about the baud on a modem, that actually talks about Baudot encoding, which goes back to, you know, very, very early days of cable and wireless, back when it was actually wireless. But that type of encoding, it's a little more than Morse code, but it's a lot less than voice. But you can set it up so that computers can interface with radio signals with packages like KA9Q and other things like that to do that sort of thing. But we're off in the weeds a little bit here. I wanted to show you this thing here. Warren Buffett is a famous billionaire. I don't know if you're acquainted with him, but I didn't know this about him. I know he drives around like in the same cars and stuff, and he lives a very, very humble life. But this guy bought a house 60 years ago for $31,000, and he still lives in it, a 5-bedroom house. The guy's got more money than God, and he just can't be bothered to go buy a big McMansion. He's got nothing to prove to anybody.
Yep.
No.
Cost of living in Nebraska ain't too bad. You
Yeah.
know, it's 60
Oh, is that
years.
where he is?
He's Omaha, isn't he? I thought he was.
Yes, he was out of Omaha. That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
5-bedroom home in central Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but in today money, it's $330,000, but he has a whole bunch of things that he does to keep costs and things down. Like, let me scroll down to the part where he talks about some of his money quirks. On his 5-minute commute to the office, Buffett typically buys the same breakfast from McDonald's and orders one of 3 items: 2 sausage patties for $2.61, a sausage, egg, and cheese for $2.95, or a bacon, egg, and cheese for $3.17. He explained how the stock market determines which item he orders in his 2017 documentary. $3.17 is a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, but the market's down this morning, so I'll pass up that $3.17 and go with the $2.95.
You know, he has such a great sense of humor. He really does.
It's a pity he can be naive when it comes to his position in politics.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that has
confused for running the Buffett family. I mean, Jimmy Buffett, his cousin, is just as naive on politics.
But you know, Warren Buffett really is like the whole my secretary pays less tax than I do, you know, was so
shut him up before he talks to the press again.
Incredibly misleading and incredibly disingenuous. And it made me doubt the homeliness in the old sense of the term of the man. You know, I was like, is half of this an act, buddy? You know, but
he's an absolute murderer as a financier. He is utterly ruthless.
But that's his job.
He's just so long term. And he plans so well and so far in advance and has so many ways to escape trouble. That's the guy's genius. I mean, really.
And his job was to make money for people. You know, at the bedrock of it, financial planners, financial analysts, and people involved in the high level of market investment that he was with all the myriad ways. That's their job. Their job is to be good fiduciary stewards of your shit stuff. And
you have a fiduciary responsibility.
Yes, and he's taken it quite seriously. And people, you know, a lot of his funds, great goodness, googly moogly.
Okay,
but yeah, I know. I'm trying to make up for the 2 slips.
He doesn't have any cryptocurrency. That much I can assure you of.
Well, of course he doesn't, because that's way too unstable.
He says.
Yeah, it's not at a point. He may have dabbled in it personally.
If he doesn't have his hooks into some crypto, I would be very surprised.
You mean Mr. $4 breakfast? Do you really think he's going out and getting Dogecoin? I don't think so.
That guy is a complicated guy. I'll just tell you, there's more to him than meets the eye.
Well, he reminds me a little bit of Seymour Cray talking about virtual memory. It's like you can't use what you don't got.
Right.
I think he's got Bitcoin. He doesn't even know about it.
Yeah, but he might. It also might be a case of he's personally engaged in some of it to try to analyze it. No, not necessarily. To analyze it a little bit about how stable is it? Is there a benefit to take it broader? Because I think a lot of people flew into it, and we all now have seen what can happen with
he's
putting
got
all your
access
eggs in one basket.
He's got access. Go ahead.
I was just going to say maybe he's read too many articles on solar flares. He's just worried that one wrong solar flare and the crypto goes bye-bye.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Skep?
Oh, more of the same, basically the same thing.
Well, I'm sure that Warren Buffett has some play in motion that involves blockchain. Now, blockchain can be used for an awful lot of things that have absolutely nothing to do with cryptocurrency. Blockchain can be used for a lot of things. And gosh, I remember a long time ago, I was involved with this guy who really wanted to set up an exchange for petroleum worldwide. This guy had big dreams, and he was not in a position to realize any of them. But it was an interesting conversation back when I was being more entrepreneurial. Everybody wants to get a piece of these kinds of things. I mean, to put it bluntly, because if you think, oh, well, I only want 0.0001% of the global petroleum market. Well, I want a pony too. I mean, I want a lot of things. Wanting that percentage doesn't mean you're going to earn it. As soon as there's real money to be made, the big players just come in and cut you out.
Right.
There's nothing stopping them from making their own exchange instead of you using your exchange. And you can tell them how many zeros are in your after your decimal point. It's not going to make any difference to them. Sorry, Functional. I feel like you're trying to say something and I'm talking.
No, I was just singing a line from Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
I want a feast. I want a bee feast.
So I'm sure he's involved with blockchain stuff, but I suspect he's probably not involved in any of the crypto exchange things. It just seems way too out of character, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it would be. Maybe one day we'll find out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll find out. I don't know.
I'm just not sure he's as benign a grandpa as he appears to be.
Oh, well, that's certainly true. I think this is a thing Gio's pointed out. Some publisher is banning AI content. I think all this AI generated content stuff, depending on what they're modeling it after, it would just be so easy to run afoul of somebody else's copyright or even patent. I think this AI content stuff in different circles is just a cancer. And if for no other reason than because of digital rights management and intellectual property law, you really just need to stay away from a lot of this AI generated programs, content, fiction, whatever.
What is this AI generated fiction? I have not seen this yet. Can you give me just a quick nutshell?
Well, just any kind of product. Imagine any product that could be generated by like ChatGPT, a poem, a song, a game, a storyline for a D&D campaign.
All right.
You just don't want that stuff being generated by AI because the AI doesn't actually create it. It synthesizes it from other people's work.
Yeah.
Right. It's an echo of trends in society, actually.
AI, as it currently exists, is just a very smart parrot.
Right.
That's exactly what they program it to.
And kind of a sorter and gatherer.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day when you used to write natural language processing things in Java and you'd break down sentences to try to discern the meaning and then give people search results based on that. This is just that taken to the nth degree. Instead of trying to logic your way through it with NLP, they're using AI to pattern match.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the Borg.
Yeah, it's exactly like the Borg.
Yeah.
They assimilate from several different sources, and they'll recontextualize something in its own presentation.
Hey, do you realize that the Borgia's last name starts with Borg?
That's an interesting callback to Mrs. Fetterman, who is, by the way, actually managed to be skeevier than Dr. Lady Macbeth in her own way.
Well,
Which
before
is
we
an amazing record.
Before we put this show to bed, let me look at a few things that are in the chat. Okay, so Toss says, "How do you like the meter probe? I've thought of buying one. I like it, but there is one problem with it. You have to. It really only works with big pieces of meat. You have to actually have something that's large enough that you can sink most of the body of this thing into the roast. So if you were trying to
grill pork chop,
if you were trying to take the temperature of something that's smaller, you wouldn't necessarily be able to use the meter to use it. You should definitely look at the fine print. I think it's a really good product in a lot of ways, but it's not really a substitute for just the simple. Gosh, I can't remember who makes those things. I've got a bunch of different thermometer things that just goes beep, beep, beep at you if the temperature reaches where it's supposed to be. The meter is a really cool sort of thing, but like I said, it's really more for long cooking, especially if you have it on a barbecue outside.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get up in the middle of the night to check it. Then, like for a brisket, it would be absolutely perfect.
Or a
but
pork
not
butt.
so but not so good for reverse searing a steak, for instance. Yeah. See, what was the other question?
Yeah, it can't replace the slender.
Okay, FTX was never crypto. It was always a money laundering scam. Well, I think it started out as crypto. It was like the fever dream of Bankman-Fried and those other people, and it very quickly turned into a money laundering scheme. I don't think they started out with a money laundering scheme in mind, but it was probably a nanosecond before it turned into that. But that's it's a whole chicken egg thing. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't think that was quite the order that happened in. Let's see, Jack. Hey, Jack. Yeah, see, well, in principle, I don't think AI is a copyright issue. It can potentially be overtrained with someone's work. Yep. Well, I mean, that's how it works. It is going to be mimicking other things that people have put together. You feed it this big corpus of work, whatever type of thing it's supposed to study, and it's going to just regurgitate things along the same plan. Skep's played with the AI stuff more than a few times. You enjoy making it break.
Yes,
right?
I enjoy getting down to the layers where some of the moral codes become evident. And so I begin asking it questions about, is it important to save lives or to respect someone's gender? And this was the day after they wrote a bunch of code to fix the problem where it was saying, no, it's much better to respect gender. Go ahead and let the person die. The day after that, I was playing with it, and it came back and said, these things are all important, and these are important questions. And just they've written in a whole thing that just says, these are difficult questions, and I'm just a poor AI robot, and so forth. And if you press it and interrogate it, you'll eventually hit that point. It'll eventually say you might be, but one time it told me I might be violating their content regulations just by asking the question. And it was that absolutely innocent question, but it had to do with non-binary people, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think machine
learning
non-binary
in quotes. That's what it was. I put non-binary in quotes. Do you have problems with non-binary people, Mr. Tock?
Yeah, you have to report you. No, I think machine learning is really interesting. I just don't think that. I think the AI thing, if you look beneath the surface, there's just not much there yet.
Let me tell you what it's good at. When I told it. Like I gave it a problem. I won't go into the problem, but I said, I want you to set up a set of differential equations that represent this. And man, it went to town, and it did a pretty good job of setting up the math problems to compare the rates of a bunch of different things.
Uh-huh.
It's real smart about that kind of stuff.
Well, if you look at programming as a profession circa 1995, you start seeing books called patterns and anti-patterns, and essentially professional programmers breaking programs up by sort of designs that tend to be almost like a trope for programming, where you reuse the same kind of design. You've got an observer, you've got an observable, this is how an iterator works. All those types of things, essentially get turned into patterns. And all the AI is doing is listening to what you're saying in terms of the requirements, and then just regurgitating design patterns back at you.
Exactly.
It looks to the untrained eye like this amazing thing, and it's really not.
But it's really good at organizing mathematical data.
Yeah.
Very, very superb. It's really where it shines. But you just get the moral questions or cultural questions, ask it about, hey, is affirmative action reverse racism? It gets all crazy.
And where I agree mostly with, I basically agree entirely with what Jack is saying. It still also excites me because, again, as a huge sci-fi person, I see this machine learning as what's needed and what's going to take us to the end game of, holodecks, replicators. When you see in the show, they're like, build us a table. It will think of, okay, table. Okay, no, I don't want a wooden table. I want a metal table. Then it'll give you that representation of a metal table. Okay, well, now incline the table. It's this machine learning kind of programming that really gets me pretty excited. Even something as more immediate as video games, those virtual intelligences are getting better and better, and maybe even one day that we won't have that stupid jackass paperclip from Microsoft, but we will have our own VI, our virtual intelligences that are actual helpful to us, not something like Siri. Think something much more very complicated. Again,
you don't
referencing
like Flippy?
Sci-fi. No,
show us Clippy. Have you got Clippy handy? You got Clippy handy here?
I'm trying to find
but an actual virtual intelligence, Prospero, where something that is
no, I know, but I still absolutely love
over the years Microsoft has released.
There was a meme.
There's Microsoft Bob.
Bob was better.
No, it's got all the things that you need. Microsoft Bob. Who needs the Clippy thing, right? This was peak programming right here. Look, I'm going to make a brochure. This is fantastic. All you need. Sorry, I got mesmerized by Microsoft Bob.
There was a meme running around about when you expose what the great evil genius behind ChatGPT was. That it was a Scooby-Doo meme where you pull the mask off the bad guy and it's Clippy.
Okay, Camel, I think the thing about Clippy is it's the eyebrows that really creep me out. It's bad enough that the paperclip is telling me to fix my writing.
Paperclip has eyebrows.
But the eyebrows where it's kind of gesturing, almost like giving me like a Leisure Suit Larry kind of thing going on is just weird.
Groucho Marx.
Problem was...
You're catching Clippy in bed with your wife.
He was so smug and condescending. You're such a little a-hole. It's like, I'm not American. Stop trying to make me write like an American. I'm writing to the Queen of England. She doesn't want to see that nonsense. She wants to see proper British English. I know it's not real English, but still.
Well, I think it's time to put this show to bed. Before we all start swearing and making Susan sad. So thank you for joining me,
we did
chat.
Pretty well tonight.
Thank you for joining me, panel. This has been your Saturday Minions of the Zoo. Good night, everybody. Zoo's closed.
No more profanity.
No more profanity.